I've had the pleasure of flying on your 350s at least 3 times in the last year, actually.
Glad to hear it, thank you.
And it's not just the product, because the product is one thing, isn't it? But it's the, and I don't know if I haven't flown India a lot, like in the 70s or the 80s or not all of that, but it's the service. That truly, that's what I would comment on anyway in terms of standing out.
I think that is India's secret sauce, to be honest. It's a naturally warm and hospitable culture. There's no secret that some of the best hotels in the world, whether it be Taj or Oberoi's or others, are Indian, and it's the service that really makes them stand out. Anyone can invest in hard product. We are investing in hard product, but the polish on the top is the consistency, the warmth, the genuine hospitality of the crew and the people that people interact with on the ground. So I think that as we bring all of the different components of the new Air India together, I'm really excited by the future. I really think we've got a very strong proposition that's already present on our A350s serving London and New York from Delhi. But over the course of 2026, there is a massive expansion in this modern international product, and it's an exciting time.
Well, I mean, to compete with the likes of Emirates, Singapore Airlines, where you used to work, Qatar Airways, Turkish, you need to be as good, you need to benchmark against these people, I guess, and aspire to be even better.
Yeah, well, look, if you get on board the 350, which you have, and I encourage other people to do so, I think you will find that the product stacks up very competitively to any one of those airlines that you name. The added advantage, of course, is that it's a non-stop service from India to New York, London, and eventually anywhere else we fly. We already fly to nearly 50 international destinations. And so not just the product and the service, it's the convenience and the time and the loyalty membership that then allows you to redeem your points on a more relevant network to you. And so I think we're really building towards something that is going to be, and already is in some aspects, globally competitive. When you talk about all of the dimensions we discussed earlier today, the size of the market, the growth rate of the market, the size of the diaspora, the fact that so many travellers from India currently go via somewhere else in a very inconvenient fashion, the opportunity to attract those customers back to an Indian carrier with an Indian product, Indian crew, facilitating Indian employment and the whole Indian aviation ecosystem we talked about, I think will be a significant attraction.
Absolutely. I'm talking to Campbell Wilson, by the way, who's the Chief Executive of Air India. How about that? Just in case we did very well. And I was lucky enough, Campbell, to interview you on stage at Farnborough just over a year ago, learning myself about the Air India transformation journey. The Aviation Club in London, you came to speak at as well. In February, we came and I interviewed you. We did the Piece for Aviation Week, and then, of course, with the IATA AGM. Again, we were prominent. We did a roundtable, really learning about India, but of course about the Air India story. The Air India story obviously took a turn. There was the tragic events of the 12th of June, and I just wanted to give you the opportunity to say what it is that you feel is appropriate at the moment on that tragic and solemn time.
Thank you, Mark. And this is the really first public engagement that we've done in India since that tragic day. It was absolutely devastating for the people involved, for the families of those involved, for the company, for the staff. And since that time, we've really been doing absolutely everything we can to support those affected, both families and also those on the ground, also the first responders, and really do whatever we can to ease their journey forward. We've had more than 600 people on the ground in Ahmedabad. We've set up a trust through Tata that was providing ex gratia payments to all of the families of those affected. We've obviously completed the interim compensation of our own and worked through the final compensation. And really the commitment from both Air India and from Tata is to do absolutely all we can for as long as it takes to bring closure to those that have been affected. We're also working with investigators. We're not involved in the investigation directly. It's something that is run by government. The interim report indicated that there was nothing wrong with the aircraft, the engines, or the operation of the airline. We obviously, as with everyone else, we await the final report, and if there's anything to learn from it, we will absolutely make sure that we do. But for the moment, our focus is on those affected and making sure that we help them in the best way we can.
Thank you, Campbell. And on an ongoing basis, has it influenced, or how have you sort of changed anything that you do internally, or has it really been, continuation of your business practices, your practices that you undertake on a day-to-day basis?
Well, in the initial phase, for the 3 months following the accident, we took what we termed the safety pause, where we reduced the volume of flying by about 15% internationally, just to ensure that there was time for even more checks than would normally be the case, to recognise the fact that pilots and engineers were being even more cautious than usual, that we had deliberately, both voluntarily and from a regulator caution perspective, put in additional checks. That has now progressively gone back to a more normal level of operations. But anything that happens in the industry, whether it's us or others, is a cause for introspection. It is a cause for reviewing practices. As I said, the interim report indicated that there was nothing with aircraft engines or practices that required changing. But of course, we're always looking at how we can keep improving, keep getting better, and keep learning.
Right. Campbell, thank you. We appreciate you giving us an update and speaking about what was such a tough time for India, for you, for the team, your colleagues, obviously for the people affected massively. So thank you. And it's good to have you back, if I may. It's that we can talk and you can come out into the public domain. So thank you. Of course, the business has to run, has to continue. It's a massive undertaking, thousands of people affected in terms of employed, directly and indirectly, so you have to continue. And you're in the middle of this transformation plan. Well, 3 years into the 5, you're into the climb phase, aren't you? That's what you described, right?
We're well into the climb phase. Okay, and to give a sense of scale, Air India has grown from a little over 100 aircraft to now 300 aircraft. As a group, we have about 30,000 staff. We have a flight takeoff roughly every 65 seconds across the group. And so it is a significant organisation that needs to keep going regardless of whatever challenges come our way. And the organisation that we see today, even though it's significantly larger than it was at the point of privatisation, is only going to get bigger because we've got 524 aircraft yet to be delivered in a firm order. All of those will come by around 2031. We've been taking an aircraft about once every 6 days for the last 2 years. We will keep taking an aircraft about once every 6 days for the next 3 or 4 years. And I guess most excitingly for us, 2026 sees us start to really ramp up the wide-body fleet. We'll be taking a new wide-body every 6 weeks or so for the next 2 years. And in addition, we start seeing the return to service of our legacy wide-body fleet, which is going in for an interior refit of completely new seats, completely new in-flight entertainment systems, bringing them up to, and in some cases slightly beyond what you experienced on the A350 flight. So by 2027, mid-2027, all of the 787 fleet will have been refurbished completely.
How many aircraft is that?
That's 26.
26, yes.
And then subsequently from late 2026 through to early 2028, all of the 777 aircraft will be refurbished. And that's in addition to the new aircraft being delivered off the production line every 6 weeks. So the foundations have been laid, the organisation has been restructured, we've brought in 9,000 new people, we've replatformed 140 IT systems, we've consolidated 63 offices, we've merged 4 airlines together, we've inducted 100 aircraft. But 2026 is when we truly start seeing from a customer perspective the new Air India properly emerge. You're already seeing a little bit of it domestically. We just completed yesterday the refit of legacy narrow-body aircraft. So now we have 104 full-service narrow-body aircraft operating in India and around the region with a very modern interior product.
With the consistent...
With the one user saw
yes,
on this video.
Yeah, and that's so important. And it's not applicable. This is, I think, one of the not misconceptions, but people think that, I don't know, in some businesses you can literally overnight change a business. You can flip the product or you can do whatever. I mean, I've been around in the airline business for long enough, reporter, to know, especially when you get to scale, especially when you involve legacy. I mean, you're not Riyadh Air. You don't have a clean bit of paper to start, designing your IT system or designing your risk system.
Especially when you're dealing with wide-body aircraft and first and business class products in particular. It's relatively easy to do narrow-body aircraft, and that's why 104 aircraft have essentially been upgraded already. But if I order a wide-body aircraft today with Salil's best of intentions, it's going to be delivered in 2032.
He's looking at you quite sturdy there, Salil, by the way. I'm the better one.
If I go to the market to get first and business class seats will take 4 years to be installed on the aircraft. If I want to do a new first class seat and design it to Air India spec, it's the best part of 7 years. And so let's
just say that again. 7 years. 7 years to spec and design
and certify and manufacture and install and then recertify the aircraft with the new seats.
And that's not his fault, because that's not part of the supply chain.
Look, and that's how long it takes. It has been particularly bad the last few years in the emergence from COVID. As was said by the previous panel, there was quite a significant contraction of the workforce of seat suppliers and others, which made the process even longer than normal. But we started the process of procurement, of design, and certification of manufacture in mid-2022.
Almost as soon as you started.
And the first wide-body aircraft with that new product comes out, let's hope, in January 2026. That's how long it takes.
So that's your first 350.
That is our first 787.
7-9.
Once the first aircraft comes out and is certified, we'll be rolling through 2 or 3 aircraft every month with the new product.
I do apologise for getting confused sometimes with Air India's labyrinth fleet. It's what you've got to do. But I think, again, just coming back to that idea of the expectations, perhaps in India, of what a transformed Air India could do, how fast. Was that always going to be unreasonable? People sort of always think it in a year, and then you get quite a bad time about, oh, look, my product on a 777, whatever it is. Is that just part of the course? This is the market we're in. We just got to suck it up.
It's part of the course anywhere. I mean, as a passenger, of course, you want what you want when you want it.
Yeah.
You've got the comparison of what the other guy's offering now, and you say, why can't this happen fast? You don't understand the certification, the regulation, the supply chain, all of the complexities of the business, and nor should you. But we were very clear from the beginning that this transformation would take 5 years, and supply chain challenges maybe stretch this by 6 months or so. But it was always a 5-year process, and we communicated it as regularly and clearly as we could. But clearly, if I'm a customer, I want the new product now, and I can't understand it, and I don't want to understand why it isn't available now. It's just the nature of the business.
Just the nature of the business, yeah, absolutely. You talked a lot about your fleet just now, and there's lots of, let's just unpick a little bit, just so I've got that really clear, and all my colleagues do. So you've got the first of 20 787-9s come in early 26. Or end of this.
The new ones should come in December.
December.
I'm looking at Boeing.
So the first 789 December, and then next year one every 6 weeks?
One every 6 weeks, mostly 789s and a couple of A350s.
Okay, let's just be specific. So you're expecting 2 A350s next year?
Next financial year.
Calendar year? Or?
Might stretch into January, February, which is the financial.
I'm just, I think it's important because
one every 6 weeks. Let's not confuse people.
No. Okay, fine. Those are 900s for the 350s. Those are the ones that get
1000s.
They're 1000s. Okay, so you're going to start with 1000. Have you got 900s as well?
There are 6 900s already.
Yeah, I'm just sorry for not. Have you got any other 900s on order, or are they all 1000s?
No, we've got 900s as well as 1000s.
20 of each, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I did my research. Ravi helped me, and I hope I got it right.
I hope there are some aircraft nerds in the audience. This is very getting into the weeds.
I'm quite cool with this. I love this. Because I'm going to, Salil knows what I'm going to ask next, which is, so the confidence in your order stream from both Boeing and Airbus, you're a massively important customer to them. They're going to look after you. That's kind of a question, but also, are they looking after you?
Well, I think the two OEMs would be the first to admit that they have had challenges ramping up their production to the level that they had hoped. And I think all customers have been pushed back 6 to 12 months. I think we're being pushed back in line with everyone else. So yes, we're being looked after in that respect. Of course, we would like the aircraft to be arriving when we originally hoped, but that's the nature of the industry. And it's not just the assemblers, the airframers that are facing this challenge. There are supply chain constraints with engines, there are supply chain constraints with seats, there are supply chain constraints with lavatories, there's supply chain constraints with interior panels that they themselves are trying to work through. And it's incredibly better now than it was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. But it takes time to ramp up this production.
No, I understand. Obviously, I understand. I mean, you've got a whole order stream of narrow bodies as well, which is, they're coming at a nice rate.
We've only got 400.
400 left.
As I say, one every 6 days.
Exactly. So great. 777s.
777s, we have a
10, I think.
payment for 10. The aircraft isn't yet certified by the regulator, so we still plan on taking those 10 should it be certified. But yeah,
It will be certified. So it will. Yeah. But you're not sure when you're going to get them. So that's a question as well. Do you know when you're going to get them? Depends on the certification.
It does.
So we'll wait and see. Okay. This rate of growth is phenomenal in any airline. And as you mentioned earlier, Campbell, the transformation plan is, it's a plan. It's a huge plan. I mean, it must take you days to go through. Just with where are we at? Everybody comes in, and catering comes in, and everybody tells you, or updates you, hopefully. What does this year, the impact of this year, do to the timing and the pace of that plan, if anything? What is your assessment of that, and what is it going to delay it? Is it going to slow it? What does it do to that process, please?
The aircraft delivery stream is the pacing item, and that is independent of anything else that's happened over the past 12 months. We need to prepare the organisation for the arrival of these 524 scale aircraft, and that comes from training pilots ab initio and then building the simulators to keep them current and proficient. It's building training academies to develop cabin crew, of which we need thousands upon thousands. It's the engineer school to train the engineers that will maintain those aircraft. It's building the MRO base that will maintain those aircraft. And that's just the sort of supporting infrastructure side of the business. Then there's the sales, the marketing, the IT infrastructure, the physical premises, HR. All of it is being put together to support a rapid and massive expansion of an airline in a market that is itself evolving and maturing. We heard on the previous panel that there's some fantastically exciting things happening in India, but it's happening from a relatively low and mature base. And so to build a big airline quickly with the quality that we aspire to, and indeed demonstrate in certain areas, it's not the easiest and smoothest of paths. Where the challenge of this last 12 months really comes in is more on the business recovery or business development side, because we were hit by a few things this year which are really quite unprecedented. One would almost call them black swan. Aside from AI-171, there was the war with Pakistan, and it was a war. The consequence of that was quite significant impact to the network, domestically, particularly around the border, and of course to travel sentiment of people travelling within and to India. Then, of course, there was the Israel-Iran conflict, which resulted in the closure of Middle East airspace, but also the ongoing closure of some Middle East airspace. There's the continuing closure of Pakistan airspace, which affects particularly us on long-haul flights to North America and Europe. Then, of course, there's a 50% tariff being applied on India by Mr. Trump. There is also the constraints on the H-1B visa, of which India was a very large consumer. And just the trepidation that sort of environment has on people's willingness to travel to and from the US in today's context. And so all of these things are quite unprecedented shocks to the system. And so this year will be quite challenging from a business perspective, but it can't derail us. It won't derail us. We have to continue building the rest of the business because we have these aircraft coming, because we still have the vision of making Air India a world-class global airline with an Indian heart, and because we still have the 5-year target in which to make this happen.
So despite that, the core mission clearly remains intact.
Absolutely.
It has to.
And it has to for a few reasons, but more so is the opportunity. We've talked about the size of the Indian market and its rate of growth. We've talked about the fact that the Indian airlines have underserved the Indian consumer with non-stop high-quality capacity to the places they want to fly. We've talked about the size of the diaspora. The opportunity remains. Now is the time to capture it. Now is the time to seize it. We've put all of the building blocks in place to do so. As someone said earlier on the previous panel, now it's time to execute.
And that execution is ongoing. Have you got you've been taking a lot of people on, have you got that talent? Is that talent there for you? Can you buy it? Do you have to train it? Do you sort of ship it in from, how do you do that?
It's a bit of everything. If we look back 10 years ago, I mean, Peter said before, 19 years ago, Indigo didn't exist. But 10 years ago, it was a very, very fragmented airline landscape in India. Multiple subscale players, undercapitalized, with Air India in the middle, without really a strong profit motive that was sort of causing the profit pool to be evaporated. And in the last 5-6 years in particular, it has started to professionalize as a consequence of government policy. There's been consolidation, there's been some players fall out of the system, there's been significant investment in airlines and airports and other infrastructure. But this is so recent, and the scale and pace of change is so great, that the pool of talent that is experienced in working with large global airlines, with large full-service airlines, with multiple fleet types, it's just not as developed as it is in perhaps places that have matured earlier or have for longer. Similarly, the MRO ecosystem, the flight training ecosystem for cadet pilots, again, it's relatively subscale, and as the DG said earlier, the quality of what they were producing probably wasn't as consistent or as high as everyone would have liked. And so we're trying to move a lot of parts at the same time. And so, look, in one respect it's challenging, but in the other respect it's incredibly exciting and incredibly fulfilling, because we are seizing this opportunity, which is really once in a generation, and it's something that can absolutely transform India, not just Indian aviation, and give something to the Indian consumer that it's not previously had.
And I think that ability for direct service as well, and obviously you've got the bread and butter that you've got domestically with yourself and Air India Express, hugely important to that core of the business. But internationally, the ability for you to grow that network with the fleet is going to it's going to enrich your business, but also the ability, for Indians not to have to go to the, brand X, brand Y, etc., outside of India.
Look, Air India has always been a predominantly international carrier. About 60% of capacity has been deployed internationally. About 25% to North America, approximately the same to Europe, Australasia, East Asia. The domestic and sort of short-haul international business has historically been a comparatively small part of our business. We see huge opportunity expanding internationally, which is why we've ordered such a large number of wide-body aircraft. But we really see opportunity domestically and short-haul international, because that has been something that Air India has underplayed in the past. And so hence the 400 aircraft there too. So look, transformation all round, opportunity all round. It's really just up to execute and seize it.
And in terms of, you're back with the winter schedule, I know there's some big additions Are you back now to the international capacity, the 15% is all back more or less, is it? Or are you still, some routes are still to be
For the most part. North America, we have not fully gone back for some of the reasons that I mentioned before. You know, it's the longest market in terms of flight duration that we serve. It's also therefore the most impacted by en route airspace constraints and other impacts that I mentioned. So we haven't fully put that capacity back. Also, refitting aircraft means that they're on the ground for a while. So that we have aircraft on the ground in the hangar being refitted that we would otherwise be flying. So we're still a little bit below the capacity that ideally we would have liked, but it's for a good cause and we want to upgrade these aircraft as quickly as possible. And a year and a half's time it'll all be done.
And the picture will look different. Clearly, China.
China, we're just waiting on our final regulatory approval. We're ready to launch a new route to China. I won't say which one yet,
No?
but that's imminent.
Okay, great. And generally, I asked Peter the question as well about the pace of liberalisation, the move to open, whatever open skies looks like in India at some point. He made his comments about that. Just wondered, in terms of your view at Air India, what is the right pace of liberalisation? We know some markets outside of India want it faster for their own commercial reasons. What's your
If you look at the long-haul markets, for the most part, Europe, Australia, North America, they're already liberalised. If you look at where the constraints are in some of those long-haul markets, it's not the air service agreement, it's the access to airport slots.
Yes.
And so we believe that, you know, the first movers in those markets, which were typically the carriers flying into India, secured an advantage in terms of the airport slots in both ends of the route. But we don't have the same luxury to enjoy, given that we are starting somewhat later. And so we think that there should be some association between access to the market for both the Indian carriers and the foreign carriers. Closer to home, we have to look at what people are using any excess traffic for. 95% of what we would carry into the near hinterland around India is third, fourth freedom traffic, which is terminating or originating in either end of the route. For some of the other carriers, upwards of 60, 70, in some cases 90% of what they're uplifting from India is transiting and going on towards somewhere else. And to the extent that Indian carriers are investing tens of billions of dollars in wide-body aircraft to serve these markets directly, those are customers that we're relying on to fill the aircraft that we're investing in. And so if the pace of liberalisation is too much, it completely undercuts the investment case that we're making to buy and enter those aircraft into service. And if we can't enter those aircraft into service, all of the ancillary benefits to MRO, to manufacturing, to tourism, to all of the things that are facilitated by air connectivity start to erode. So I firmly believe that it's in India's interests to make sure the pace of liberalisation is such that it doesn't undercut the investments being made by Indian, not just the airlines, Indian aviation players, to develop India into the thriving, large, world-leading, world-attracting ecosystem that I think all of us want it to be.
So it's about appropriateness of pace in a balanced manner at the right time.
India is still in some respects a developing country. We're competing against countries that developed much earlier. I think it's prudent that the pace is not dictated to by the most developed, and not necessarily by the least developed, but is prudent for all parties involved.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about literally, the investment made, the infrastructure, the ecosystem we talked about on the panel that's coming along on this journey. It all has to work in tandem. Okay, Campbell, thank you for those observations. You mentioned it about the challenges of this year, clearly in terms of the business side. Just give us your thought on, and I know Air India doesn't provide us with, I don't go to an analyst call like I do with Indigo and get the whole chapter and verse, etc. Just give us the update you'd like to give us on your business performance in terms of that route which is, I know is part of your ambition, that route to break even. We talked about operating profit, I think, when we last talked, but just give us an update, please, on the performance, the financial performance of the carrier at the moment, and what you're expecting it for this year, and what you're planning, hoping for next year, if you would.
It's very difficult to speak about that at the moment because there are so many external factors, and I mentioned a large number of them a little bit earlier in the conversation. It's been reported that the airspace closures that we face alone will be in the order of 4,000 crore impact. 4,500 billion US dollars. That's clearly a big sum in anyone's book. It's not something that anyone had anticipated. It literally came out of the blue. So look, it is challenging, but as I say, it's something that we have to deal with. The shareholders are committed to the vision. The vision is still very real, the opportunity is still very real, and we're building towards that. And we just have to navigate the challenges as they come.
You say just. This is a massive task. I mean, it's no just about it. This is where you earn, where your team earn your big bucks.
What is the alternative?
No. No. This is what you do. This is why you're here. This is why you, Campbell Wilson, have been brought in by the Tata Group, because you bring this experience, this nous. You've done it.
No, look, it's not just me. It's the whole team. It's the whole team. We are committed to this vision that we set out and articulated 3 years ago. We're making good progress with all of the foundation activities and things that we've been putting in place over the past 3 years. We know what we need to do to bring the next 2 years to closure. Have there been surprises along the way? Of course. Some have been supply chain, some have been external events. That's the nature of the world. But do we still believe in the end state that we're building towards? Absolutely yes. And we think it's going to be spectacular for India. And you can see in the earlier video of the 350 that it's already present. It's already present on a number of routes. It's going to become increasingly present throughout 2026. And by 2027, 2028, it will be ubiquitous.
I love that word, ubiquitous. We've got a couple more areas, I think, before we finish. Just one, you talked about the ecosystem and your investment in various areas. Pilot training, the joint venture with Airbus. You just recently opened that, I think.
Yes.
This is big, double-digit simulators in partnership with.
It's $100 million US investment. The one with Airbus is 10 simulators. With another partner for the Boeing aircraft will be more than 10 simulators. So very significant.
Right. That's not announced, is it? Is that announced?
Partnership is still being discussed.
Right. We have a session on pilot training tomorrow. We'll have a little dig around in that one. And the MRO piece we've talked about. Are there any bits of that ecosystem that you haven't touched yet, which you think, we're going to get to that?
Not really. The reason we're investing in the ones that you mentioned is because we see them as absolutely strategic enablers of the airline and the growth and the quality and consistency and culture that we want the airline to have. There are third-party providers for some of these things, but to be entirely reliant on third-party providers carries a very significant degree of risk, especially for an airline of the size and the pace of growth that we have. Also, the relative immaturity of the Indian market means that there's not the same choice of third-party supplier that might exist in Europe or North America or elsewhere. So it's a necessity just for business continuity, risk management, for us to invest in it. There are other things we would like to do, both in the supporting infrastructure as well as network and fleet, but we've already got a huge amount on our plate, and we want to make sure that we don't stretch ourselves too thin to jeopardize that. So there will be time for more.
There will be, yes. And I thought the discussion was quite interesting about the sort of the 30 or 40 seat small aircraft market, and you made some very good points about what's the unit cost, and is this a real business opportunity? Is that the sort of thing that's on the nice to do list at some point in the 2030s when we've got the transformation program, the processes, you're making plaque, you've got things set up, it's not for now.
I'm not going to put any timelines to it. 2030 maybe too long, maybe too short. But yeah, there's a long list of nice to haves and opportunities that we'd like to attack. But just going back to that small aircraft, if you look at the airfare that is on some of those short routes, and you look at the proportion of the airfare that is consumed by landing, parking, and navigation, it's 40%, right? 45%. Then all of the other elements of operating the flight have to squeeze into that 50% of an airfare, which is competing against the train. So this is where I think that whole ecosystem discussion and our role for government comes into play. That, as I said, there's huge logical reasons to expand that sector of the market, but there's some real structural impediments to doing so that are not entirely within the airline's capacity to solve.
I mean, I guess airport charges and the airport access, but charges is something, which is always a topic for airlines. And I know when you go internationally, you'll have a great discussion about incentives and all the rest of it. But in India, Campbell, is that flexibility on charges, is that partnership on charges there? Because I know you've asked, I think you've made pleas and said, look, this is, even the hub airports, too expensive. There's something here that's not working very well. We could work much better, perhaps, in this area. What's your thoughts about that?
I don't want to speak about any particular player in the ecosystem. It is how viable is the ecosystem in totality? And are all of the participants in the ecosystem able to extract an appropriate return on their investment? And that is why there is a role for coordination and regulation. And indeed, there is coordination and regulation. It's just, is it happening with a view to maximizing the pie rather than redistributing
individual people?
The elements
Yes,
of.
yes.
And so that's where certain jurisdictions that perhaps have a single family P&L where airline, airport, ground handler, caterer, duty-free supplier, everyone is part of the same P&L, have a little bit more leeway because they can mix and match between who's earning what from who. Here we've got a very much more fragmented environment where everyone is pursuing a profit objective of their own and not necessarily looking at how they can collaborate for greater good. It becomes a lot more difficult. In India is one of the most diverse, in every respect, geography, religion, food, culture, climate, it's one of the most diverse places in the world, and no less so in the aviation space. The number of airports, the number of airport operators, the number of airlines, the number of states, it's complex. And so it's never going to be quite as clean as a much simpler environment, and nor should it be. But that fragmentation does carry a cost, and so therefore the need for some alignment becomes a little bit greater.
I guess that's one of the difficulties we said on the panel. Finding that alignment, who makes that alignment, is quite a difficult task. But as you get more successful, as you grow, your business becomes more powerful in that sense. Your buying power, your influence becomes more powerful. Have you sensed that? Do you see that in your discussions, negotiations, interactions with different partners, with different players? I'm not trying to say that you're trying to be the big alliance, but as you become more successful, you will be, your influence, your impact increases.
We don't think about things in that way. I think probably the biggest signal that we made in this context was the commitment to 470 aircraft, now 570 aircraft in 2022. This price, $100 billion US worth of investment. That, I think, signaled to the aviation world that Air India was a serious player prepared to invest significantly in assets, in growth, in people, in excellence. I think the product that you see flying is also a further example of seriousness. That, I think, gives people the confidence to speak to us as someone that is a significant, influential, incredible partner, both now and in the future. It's not about power, it's about opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. just going to put one eye to that, which I can see we're nearly out of time, but just give us a thought, Campbell, about the market. What do you expect, you know, for your market? I mean, I flew out here on the airport, it was packed. I talked to your crew in London. You've added a 7th daily to London. Everybody wants a bit of India as well, by the way. The whole British Parliament and lots of big wigs were here the other day. Lots of people want a bit of India. What does your radar tell you about this year, and as you look into next year in terms of, you know, performance, traffic, market outlook, please?
Well, I think the operative word in 2025 is uncertainty. Uncertainty in global trade policy, uncertainty in global economic policy, uncertainty in global stability and peace politics. You know, and I think that does have an impact on the demand environment. You look at what other airlines are reporting, and they are noticing that there's a little bit of wobbles, a few wobbles. But what happens this year, what happens this month, what happens this week is not so important in the context of what we're doing. You know, we're building a new Air India. We're building Air India that carries Indians to the places they want to fly around the world conveniently, safely, with high quality, and which represents India in the way that India wants to be represented. In so doing, we're facilitating an ecosystem, not just for aviation, but for tourism, for business, for soft power across the world. That is something that, you know, India has long wanted, and we feel that we're in a position to contribute to. So there will be ups and downs in the short term, but the longer term is very, very exciting and very, very real.
Campbell, thank you. We're going to end it there. That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for spending all this time with us, and to your team as well for their cooperation and great collaboration. It just leaves me to say to the audience, please thank Campbell for being here today. Thank you. Thank you, Campbell. Brilliant. We now go to the lunch break.